lot of coaches believe if I'm a life coach, then I shouldn't need a life coach. I should be able to just coach myself, and really it's like, we can't see our own blind spots. It's like you have to really have that outside perspective to be able to really see what you're missing.
All right. Hey, so we've got a unique episode today. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I am so good. Shannon, how are you?
Good. You're doing double duty. We're listening to my podcast, which is called Keep What You Earn, as well as Jennifer's. Introduce your podcast.
Yes, my podcast is called Clarity to Cash, and we talk a lot about working smarter, not harder. And so Shannon and I decided today that we were going to start to work a little smarter and not harder and do a podcast episode at the same time for both platforms. So this is so exciting.
Yeah. So, we always do a lot of interview style podcasts. I think both of us do. And I think it's really fun to just start a conversation and to weigh in from both sides, and both of us talk about a lot of the same things, right? We talk about money, we talk about working smarter, not harder. And of course, my podcast being what it's called, Keep What You Earn, is how to keep more of what you're earning. So, my first question to you, Jennifer, is how can people work smarter, not harder? And what ways are people generally working a little too hard that you've seen?
Oh gosh, what a great question. I think it runs the gamut. I mean, I think so often as entrepreneurs, when you're just starting out, it's like the hustle mentality. They're working really hard because they're trying to do all the things, but they're not always doing the things that are going to move the needle. So, and that's why I think it's so incredibly important to get super, super clear on, who you're talking to, what their pain points are, right? Like, so knowing exactly what it is they're struggling with, because when we just start doing all the things, right? Like, we start the website, we start the Facebook group, we start the podcast, we start all these things, but we really don't know, who we're talking to and how we're helping them. That is when we start to work really, really hard, and we're not really doing the things that are going to get us the clients, which is what we ultimately want. And I have so many clients, or even prospective clients, who are like, I'm just working really, really hard on my content. And this is funny, like I don't have time to really make connections with people because I have to spend so much time putting out content. And I'm like, but if you're just putting out content and you're not connecting with people, you're not going to get more clients, because, you could have the most amazing content in the world, but I really truly believe that you have to make those connections in order for people to really know you and like you and trust you. So I think that's one way. The other thing that I think happens is that we work hard in our head.
Yeah.
So I think we spend so much time worrying about our business and worrying about the next clients and worrying about how are we going to make the next, our how are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to we worry so much that we almost create this work in our head, this hustle in our head, that really ends up draining us. And oftentimes both ways, the actual, physical hustling and then the mental hustling, I think both of them can really lead to burnout. And so I think that's a huge thing that that really women, my audience is women. I know yours isn't.
Yeah, we do. It's mostly women listening to the show, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think we just, we really just do ourselves a big disservice by not getting the foundational stuff clear first. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, I'm guilty of that. When I first started my business, I was kind of rationalizing that I was working really hard when I was just spending a lot of time.
Yes.
And that's not the same thing.
No, it's not.
No, playing around. I remember I was pounding my head against the wall, trying to learn how to set up an email list and do all the email marketing. Right. When I first got exposure to this, I was on MailChimp trying to figure it out. And I was I'm working really hard. And it's no, no, you are working really hard. You're working a lot, but it's less about time management. It's more about energy management. I found is this is draining my energy. And is this a good way for me to spend my energy? I treat every minute of the day like it's a budget. Am I spending money time like money, where I'm spending all of my money on this, if it's on social media or scrolling or creating content. And it's but don't you deserve to save some for your clients and your
Mm,
family? Right.
yes,
So I look at it
absolutely.
like a fixed amount of energy where I go, when am I refilling the cup? When am I pouring out, and how am I pouring out, and who's getting that energy from me? And when you realize that you're kind of just like walking around and shaking the cup and like giving it to everyone, you're like, oh, well, shoot, I have none left to give to the people who matter in my life. And I realized that was really hitting me like a rock after a certain amount of time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And I think that is, I think that's really the magic of having a successful business is really being able to figure out, like, yeah, exactly how to budget that energy. Because, yeah, we all have 24 hours in a day. Like, we're not, like, no matter what we do, we're not going to get more time, but we can do things that will fill up our tank and fill up our cup so that we have more energy. And I think that is like such an important thing for women and men both to tune into is like, when am I most productive, right? When, and like, what really fills me up? And oftentimes, like, again, like, if, I think, like, just to use the example of social media, like, some people love doing like reels or live videos or whatever, and that really fills them up. And other people like dread it. And they're like, oh my God, if I have to do a reel, like, I'm just, this is gonna like, like, they stress about it and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. And so they worry and they stress and they are, super anxious about it. And then their energy is gone. So it's like, did you really do something to help your business grow right there? Or did you just like zap all your energy for no good reason? So I think it's really
Yeah.
important to tap into the things that really, that you really love in your business. And there's so many different ways to market and, get our name out there. And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be like dancing on a reel.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. And so here's the funny thing that I did to hack this, right? I love showing up on video, but I don't love getting dressed. I love showing, those of you who follow me know this. I love showing up on video, but I hate looking, having to get pretty to go on video
Yeah.
necessarily. So like I will create video content and audio content all day long,
Mhm.
but I just hate having to like get dressed to go nowhere and to show up on
Yeah.
camera. It's just weird and
Yeah.
unnatural to me. So this is just
Yeah.
how I am naturally. And what's funny is, you know what I did to get around this? If y'all don't follow me, I have a puppet that looks like me that does all my reels,
Oh my God,
and
you
she's
are so
dressed.
funny. Oh my gosh, I have not seen this. I have got to see this.
Yeah, so Puppet Shannon is actually doing all my reels and I'm talking in them. So I actually don't have to show my face on camera, and yet I am showing my face on camera. So
That's-
it's really fun. And I do show my face on camera a lot. I do. I want people to know who I am and interact with a
Yeah.
human being. But there are just some of those days, like most of the days when I want to record reels for like 15, 30 seconds, right? You may not be in good lighting or have a face on or be like, "Ugh, now I have to go get ready to go do this." No, I want to be able to, in a split second when I have an idea, go push the record button.
Yeah.
And that's how I do it. That was actually, people have told me, what a brilliant idea for your marketing. And I'm like, half that, half me not wanting to put a bra on.
I love it.
So
I
it's
love
really,
it.
it's really like I actually do believe that all great ideas stem from laziness, because all of our brains are trying to find the path of least resistance to get the results we want all the time. And some of the most brilliant ideas and technologies have come from, how do we make this faster, less
Yes.
invasive, less annoying? How do we create less resistance to get the result that we want? And for some reason, my brain went, oh my God, we should do a cartoon or we should do a puppet. And cartoons were way too expensive. So we, we landed on puppet. But that's exactly a great example of, I didn't want to do reels every day.
Yeah.
So I found a way to do them every day that was way more fast, fun, and honestly less stressful, because if a reel tanks, whatever, it took me 20 seconds. If a reel skyrockets, awesome, that took me 20 seconds. But I'm not emotionally invested in the performance because I didn't invest a ton of time.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's so great because it's like when you have that great idea, like when we have those great ideas, we get so much energy, right? We're so excited. We're like, oh my gosh, I got to get this idea out there. And if you stop then and you go and put the bra on and, brush your hair and put your makeup on, like, the energy is now gone. Like it's not there anymore. And it's, I really do believe that people buy energy and
Yeah.
people buy like us at our like, when we're being silly and we're being funny and we're, doing like, I think that's what
Yeah.
attracts
When
people
we're
to us.
just
So
acting out of instinct and sharing good ideas and letting
yeah.
the content speak for itself. And the other thing too is, like you said, like getting dressed takes energy and all this stuff. But not only does it take energy, it also puts pressure, because it's like
Mhm.
you're now preparing, you're doing extra things to do the thing.
Yeah.
It creates more resistance, it creates more pressure, and it creates more steps in the process to say, well, I already got dressed, so I might as well, even if you're not feeling like it and you're not going to show up with energy, you're like, well, I'm already dressed, so I might as well record something. And
Yeah.
that could be a
That's
time,
true.
that could be a time hack. But I truly believe in the, showing up when you're, as they call it, like high vibe, right? High frequency, showing up when you're really high energy, because people will feel that. They'll get a sense of that through the camera, that like you're in a good mood today.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really important to really showcase that, when you really want to, when you want to showcase your brand, is showing up when you have a lot of energy. And that means not just on social media, but for your clients, especially, and for your family, knowing when, as you put it, when you're at your peak, and then knowing that's when this has to get done, because that's when it will get done the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so
Totally.
true. So, yeah, I'd love if we could shift into talking about this whole idea of keeping what you earn.
Mm,
And this is such an interesting topic because when you're first starting out as an entrepreneur, you want to keep every little bit of what you earn, right? Like you're like, "Oh my God, I'm finally making some money. I want to keep it, or I want to save it and spend it on something that like really excites me, like,
yeah.
maybe a trip or that like handbag you've been lusting over forever, right?" But here's the thing. I think so many of us, in order to keep that money growing and in order to keep building our businesses and really keep the success and keep, eventually start scaling, we also need to invest back into our business. So
For
I would
sure.
love to hear from you, Shannon, because you are the money guru. What thoughts do you have on this, first of all?
So I believe in the concept of being rewarded for delayed gratification.
Okay.
So if you, now, of course, this goes with a grain of salt with, of course, some people need the money right now for a specific purpose, medical
Right.
bills, other things. Like, I get that there's urgency to certain things, but if you're
Yeah.
in business and you're making money and you're like, woohoo, celebrate the money. But then also remember that it's like a garden. Okay. When you're investing your time, your money, your efforts, your service, you are planting seeds, and those seeds will grow with water with time, right? Because they don't just spring up. Throwing more seeds in the dirt doesn't make them grow faster. So it takes time. It will always take time. But in due time, they'll start to sprout, they'll start to bloom.
Mm,
And what we are tempted to do is harvest immediately.
mm,
But here's the thing, if you let them, then they will also grow, bloom, and they will shed more seeds.
mm.
But if you take them too soon, they will not. This is the
Okay.
perfect analogy for your business, because if you harvest your earnings too soon in your business, or too much too soon, I should say, I'm not saying don't touch it. I'm saying don't, you know, um, take your whole bank account out as soon as
Right.
you
Right.
have a successful launch, right? You need to reinvest, and you need to make sure you have enough in there to sustain the business, because especially if you're an entrepreneur who runs through launch cycles, which go through,
Mhm.
like, let's say launching something and then whack their microphone, launching something and then going through a lull for 2 or 3 months,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's an issue, because now you have to remember that you've got to earn enough to last you 3 months, right? You have to hoard those acorns like a
Right.
squirrel
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have them last. So what I'm getting at is, when we talk about keeping what you earn, you want to make sure that you're not over harvesting from your business, and that you're letting those seeds replant themselves, and treating the business's money like the business's money, where you, even though it is yours, you have every right to it. You also have to semi ask permission and say, hey, can I have some? You have
Mm,
to act like the business has the money, not you, and that
okay.
you have to almost grant permission to take it out for a really good reason. because you have to think about, if I take $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 out of my business, what would that represent that I can't do in the business as a result of that decision? So you have to think about all of the, what I call the opportunity cost of taking the money out.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. And I really feel like though, sometimes, I get on, my sales calls, and a lot of this, you know, I'm learning more as I'm having more sales calls, and I'm really learning that in the beginning of entrepreneurship, it's hard to invest in coaching because you feel like you're investing in something you don't have the money for. However, if you invest in coaching, and I'm extremely confident that my clients, if they invest in coaching with me or with another really, really amazing coach, that is going to then grow their money. So what would you say to those clients out there, potential clients, people, our guests, or not our guests, our listeners who are like, I really want to like hire a coach, but it seems almost irresponsible for me to hire a coach when I don't have really enough money coming in to afford that coach. And I know sometimes, clients will take out a credit card or borrow money or, ask the husband, and I think that's really like, it's really important to do that. But I think there's all these like, these hesitations and these, mindset blocks. Well, I'm not really worth investing this in my business. And, what are people going to think? I keep spending money and I'm not really making money. And all these mindset blocks come up around that. So I'm just wondering, like, for you, like, what do you think? How do you navigate that question?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I want your thoughts on this too, actually, too, because it's complicated, right? It's always case by case in terms of like what the whole situation is and the whole story. But if I were to paint a broad brush, my advice would generally be to someone who approaches me with that, right? Especially because I work with a lot of coaches who spend a lot of money in coaching. And I have this conversation with them frequently. My advice at any point when hiring a coach is having a full understanding of what your objective is in hiring them and what your intention is to learn, develop, or get as a return on your investment. And that doesn't mean you have to physically know how much you're going to make as a result of hiring them. But here's a great example, because you and we just talked about this. We worked with a sales coach, but we walked in with like, I want to refine my sales process. I want to close, more. I want to go from like a 40% close rate to a 60% or something like that. That's tangible in terms of I will know that I'm successful if I've achieved that, and that will drive results in my business and therefore be worthwhile. But there's a lot of folks who will invest in a coach, call it intuition, call it, like, I just know I need to work with this person, and that's fine. But what I would challenge them on is, well, what is your intention with working with them? What is the blind spot they're going to cover for you? What is the core thing that you're going to be working on with them where you'll walk out better than when you started? Because if you can't define that, then I would challenge, depending on what the investment was, I would challenge like taking out another credit card just to pay for them, or overexerting yourself financially for that benefit if you can't define what that benefit really is going to be. So I'm much more of a logical thinker in that regard, where I'm thinking, well, what are they going to do with you? What are they going to be working on with you? And even just knowing, well, my goal walking out of this relationship is that I want to raise my prices and have more confidence to raise my prices. So by the end of this, I want to be charging $5,000 a client. Okay, cool. Because if you do that, it pays for itself.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So true. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I think it's really important for people to know exactly what they're looking for. And like you said, we both hired a sales coach because, for me, my background is really all psychology. And I'm like, I know when I get in a sales conversation, and I'm really much, much better at this now than I was in the beginning, but I would get so anxious. I would be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel gross or salesy or pushy or icky in any way. So I hire a sales coach to help me navigate that. And I really I knew exactly where my gaps were and kind of my blind spots, like you said. And I think if you go into it knowing exactly what you want out of it and being super intentional, and I think, and this is totally like an aside and like kind of a tangent, but I think as soon as you invest in coaching too, and like I've hired this coach for this specific reason, before you even have a session with that coach, sometimes you start to see more success immediately, just because now you've made this a priority and a focus in your life. And so now you're going to focus on it and you're going to start to get really, really good at it even before you even have that first session. So
Yeah. Have you heard now? Okay. Those of you listening probably know this and you're going to like show up in my comments, with what it's called. But there's a thing that Tony Robbins talks about. It's this cognitive thing where, for example, like as soon as I bought a red CRV, I started seeing them on the road everywhere.
yes, yes,
So it's kind of
absolutely.
this thing where like once you've become aware, hyper
Yeah,
aware of the thing and your brain focused on it, it's like now that I'm an owner of this and now I have to find it in every parking lot and it's embedded
yeah,
in my brain, right? Like what
yes,
I'm looking for. Now suddenly it's everywhere.
yep,
And now suddenly I'm seeing it and there's opportunities coming up
yeah,
because my brain is focused on those opportunities. It's equally law of attraction type stuff, but I also think it's a bit of your brain is trying to find the familiar
yes.
and and is magnetized to those types of things. I actually think there's a link there somehow. I'm not clearly not a neuroscientist, but I think there's some type of linkage between these concepts that Tony talks about and a bit of like, ain't it funny how, as soon as
Mhm.
I hire a sales coach, suddenly I'm showing up a little bit differently and I'm implementing these skills and seeking out more knowledge and doing a lot of things that I could have done if I hadn't hired her.
Yep,
But
yep.
because I did, I was now magnetized and inspired to do more. And
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
like,
also part of the process.
yeah, I think it's like what you focus on grows stronger. And
Yeah.
as soon as you start to focus on something, it really does start to change. And yeah, our brains love the familiar, right? And so as soon as, like you said, with the red car,
Yeah.
it's like as soon as you have a red car, you see red cars everywhere. They were there before, you just didn't notice them because our brain really just likes to it the easiest path, right? Like you were talking earlier about, we just want to be lazy. Our brains are lazy. Our brains just want to do what is easy, what's familiar, which is why I think just getting that first, like having that first conversation with that coach that you're going to hire, like you already start to move the needle and things start to really
Mm-hmm.
just, they're different. They're just different.
And I think it also should be called out that A, you have a psychology background. B, I have a financial background where I actually worked in technical sales back in the day, back in my career. And it's funny because both of us hired a sales coach. Why? Because even if we're good at elements of that or on the outside, it seems like, well, you should be good at that because you're good at psychology, right? So it's kind of like
Yeah.
psychology. It's kind of like it's a whole separate skill.
Yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
whole separate mindset that goes into it. So even if you're actually technically savvy in a certain area, it doesn't always mean you're going to be successful when you're putting it into practice. And I've realized that there's a disconnect there between what you think you should be good at.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then when you actually have to go do it, you're like, oh man, that was harder than I thought.
Yeah.
You ever
Yeah.
find that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting because a lot of coaches believe, well, if I'm a coach, like for example, like a life coach, like if I'm a life coach, then I shouldn't need a life coach. I should be able to just coach myself, And really, it's like we can't see our own blind spots. It's like you have to really have that outside perspective to be able to really see what you're missing. And so, yeah, I think that's so. It's just, yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I even had someone else do my tax return for a while, and I had someone else do my bookkeeping. Why? Because it's a fresh perspective, and they
Yeah,
ask
absolutely.
questions, and then I can use those questions on my clients too. So I can be like, I
Mhm.
learned something new from this person. Uh, Moral of the story: don't pass up an opportunity to learn something
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
don't let your ego get in the way of that either. Um, for sure. So yeah, so we talk about clarity to cash, and I know that Jennifer, you have you were telling me about these journal prompts that you have. I want to know A, more about that. B, um, how the journaling has really helped people gain that clarity. Can you give us some examples of, I mean, maybe one of them that you happen to really like, one of your favorite journal prompts for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I really believe that journaling gives us clarity. And so I mean, I'm all about getting super, super clear because I think clarity gives us confidence and then we can really show up in the way that we want to and make the connections that we want to make over time. And then that's where the money comes in. So as far as journaling goes, so many people love, love, love journaling. I feel like it's really like making this huge resurgence or something today. In today's day and age. And I always have resisted journaling. And so the beginning of this year, 2022, I knew like journaling was the thing that I needed to do to get more clarity in my business and in my life too. And so I literally like even though and I used to do it when I was little, like when I was a teenager, I think I was always in my room, always writing. I was just, I was always that kind of nerdy girl who was always writing poetry or writing in my journal. And so I don't know what's happened to me over the years, but I definitely resisted it. And then when I got back into it again, I'm like, oh my God, this is magical. And so I don't know. I think it just gives us so much clarity on a lot of the mindset blocks that we have. It really helps us to kind of get out of our head, I think, too, because we're so often just in our thoughts, and our thoughts, we have 60,000 plus thoughts a day, and they're the same ones often repeating over and over again. And I think getting it out on paper is one way, getting it out with another person is another way. But for me, journaling, like bringing that back into a daily practice for me has been almost life changing, I would say. So I don't know my exact journal prompts right now,
That's okay.
but my very first one that I always start with people is to really visualize where they want to be in a year. And I do this in all my like clarity sessions with people as well, is to really get super clear on where you want to be 1 year from now. And it's funny because this can be really hard for people. Some people, this is a breeze, this is super easy. Other people are like, I have no idea where I want to be 1 year from now. But more importantly than just like, okay, where are you like located? Where are you living? What do your surroundings look like? I love to really key into like, what are the emotions that you're having?
Oh, I like
Because
that.
yeah, because I think that is really that future self that we're all trying to achieve. That's, I think, those of us who are into self development and just trying to improve ourselves and learn and grow all the time. Like, I think really keying into how does my future self feel? How does she show up every day? Like, what are the feelings that she's having? And then if we can start living that way now and start to, kind of lean into that person and I would say become best friends with your future self. Like, how would my future self handle this situation? If you're in a tough situation, you're not sure what to do, you're feeling confused, how would my future self show up right now? How would she handle this situation? So I
Yeah.
guess that would be my first journal prompt, is really get super clear on 1 year from now. Where are you? What are you doing? What does your life feel like? Who are you with and who are you not with? I think it's
Mm,
important to notice who we're not with as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think, and then if I were, because if you ask me that question, right, I get overwhelmed and I'm like, I don't know. But if you framed it in like the way of what you just did when unpacking that, where I go, oh, what challenges will I probably have in the next year? And what type of person will I need to be where those
Mm,
don't bother me?
yeah.
That would be a really cool, that's the way I'm actually interpreting it is,
Yeah.
how would future Shannon handle this after she's already done it?
Yeah.
Right. And you have to really think about that. That's an interesting thing to unpack, because it's more than just like, I plan on being on the beach, a
Right.
year from
Right.
now,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
hope to be. I love that. I love that. So where can folks find those journal prompts?
Well, I will link them in the show notes for both of us here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and it's 10 journal prompts to more clarity and more cash. So I will link that below. Yeah, And people can find me. Were you going to ask that next?
Well, yeah, let's talk about follow Clarity to Cash. Obviously, that's Jennifer's podcast.
Yes. Yes. Clarity to Cash. And, really, I am pretty much just on Instagram and Facebook. That's where I focus my attention. I find, in the spirit of working smarter, not harder, that's where I love showing up. I love being on Instagram. So I'm at J Jakobsen Life Coach, and and then pretty much everything goes over to Facebook too. So you can find me there too. And we'll link all of that in the show notes. So yes, awesome.
Perfect.
And where can we find you, Shannon?
So Shannon Weinstein, I'm a CPA, fractional CFO for business owners. I am at Shannon K. Weinstein on Instagram. But the best place to find content from me is my podcast right here at Keep What You Earn. And we actually have a completely free community for all the listeners where you can go in, jump into a monthly Q&A call with me. So I call it the judgment and jargon free zone. So if you are a business owner who wants to gain more clarity without feeling the anxiety and the stress of, oh my God, I have a stupid question, or I hope no one judges me, or all the things that get in the way of us getting the knowledge we need. Yeah. We got you. We got your place right over there. No judgment, no stupid questions. I answer everything. And I love, love, love pouring into that community.
Oh my gosh. I think that is so valuable, because I think so many of us are like super embarrassed of our questions,
yeah.
Especially those of us like myself who are definitely not in a financial kind of mindset. We're a lot more in, the helping. I want to serve. I want to help. I don't think about money at all. Like if money comes in, great. I just want to help people. So yeah,
totally.
I love that you're a judgment-free zone. So thank you for offering that.
Of course. And thank you for hopping on this crossover episode with me. This is a lot of fun.
This was great. Thanks, awesome. Shannon.
Thank you.